Imagine standing at the batting crease. You're looking down the pitch and watching a bowler hurl a rock-hard cricket ball straight towards your head at a terrifying 155 kilometers per hour. To put that into perspective, that is literally faster than most highway speed limits. Now, picture the guy bowling it. You're probably imagining a giant, right? Someone well over 6'4", using massive levers and sheer towering height to generate that kind of frightening velocity. But that wasn't Dale Steyn. Welcome to this explainer, where we are going to decode the absolute masterpiece of biomechanics that was Dale Steyn. We're looking at a man who generated extreme pace, pinpoint accuracy, and aggressive late swing, all while standing at a surprisingly average 1.79 meters tall. So, how on earth did he do it?
Right, so that height, roughly 5'10", is actually a distinct physical disadvantage in the world of express fast bowling. But as it turns out, Steyn didn't need height. When we really break it down, his secret wasn't about being the biggest guy on the field. It was about having what many consider the most ruthless, perfectly efficient kinetic chain in cricket history. He was, simply put, a master of momentum transfer. Every single ounce of energy he created from the ground up was flawlessly channeled directly into that cricket ball. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is how we're going to break it all down. First, building maximum momentum. Second, the explosive kinetic transfer. Third, precision at the release. Fourth, the complete arsenal. And finally, his legendary statistical legacy.
Starting right off with Section 1, building maximum momentum.
To really understand extreme pace, you've got to realize it starts long before the ball is actually bowled. We have to track that energy from the very ground up, starting with his approach. It all begins with this incredibly smooth, rhythmic 18 to 20 meter run-up. Unlike some bowlers who kind of just casually jog in and try to force all the pace at the very end, Steyn accelerated continuously. He was reaching nearly 90% of his absolute sprinting speed before he even entered the crease. And he ran almost perfectly straight, minimizing any energy leakage along the way. Then comes the gather. Notice how compact it is? He loads his bowling arm right in front of his shoulder line, wasting absolutely zero time or energy. But here's the real critical differentiator. His jump. You see, a lot of young bowlers make the mistake of jumping way too high, which converts their hard-earned forward speed into vertical movement, and that just kills their momentum. Steyn, he didn't do that. He used a low, explosive horizontal bound. He preserved every single bit of that sprinting speed to carry it violently right into the crease.
Moving on to Section 2, the explosive kinetic transfer.
Now, all that horizontal sprinting momentum is incredible, sure, but it's completely useless if you can't actually harness it. At the crease, Steyn somehow turns that linear speed into raw rotational power. He lands with this lightning-fast back foot contact phase, literally spending minimal time on the ground here. And this rapidly throws his momentum violently toward his front leg, triggering a uniquely hip-dominant action. He wasn't relying on heavily bending his knees for power like some do. Instead, researchers have noted he generated immense force through rapid explosive hip rotation.
And this hip rotation creates something biomechanists call hip-shoulder separation. It's fascinating. As his hips explosively open up and face the batsman, his shoulders actually lag behind, remaining momentarily closed off. Think of it exactly like pulling back a really heavy rubber band. This brutal stretch-shortening effect stores massive amounts of elastic energy right in his core, just waiting to snap forward.
But listen, to snap that rubber band effectively, you need a rock-solid base. Enter the braced front leg. When Steyn's front foot landed, his leg stiffened incredibly fast. His knee did not collapse under the immense force of his run-up. This specific, isolated piece of mechanical genius, this perfectly braced front leg, is the absolute primary reason he was able to bowl consistently above 150 kilometers per hour without needing towering height.
To really wrap your head around this, think of the car crash effect. Just imagine a fast-moving car suddenly slamming into a solid brick wall. The car stops violently, but all that energy doesn't just disappear, does it? It has to go somewhere, so it redirects violently upwards and forwards. That braced front leg was Steyn's brick wall. It acted as a sudden braking mechanism, stopping his horizontal running energy dead in its tracks and redirecting all that force straight up through his hips, into his trunk, through his shoulder, and ultimately right into the cricket ball.
Which brings us to Section 3, precision at the release.
Now, what's really interesting is how perfectly his upper body capitalized on all that crazy energy rushing up from his lower half. It's a completely violent synchronization. Steyn doesn't just rely on his bowling arm, his left arm, the non-bowling arm, drives up aggressively and then pulls downward violently. This actually increases his rotational speed and balance. This allows his bowling arm to whip over from a high position with just lightning speed. And look at his wrist, locked, fingers right behind the ball, presenting a perfectly upright seam. And the whole time, all of this is happening while his head remains completely rigidly stable, with his eyes just burning a hole straight into his target.
Let's contrast Steyn's elite stability with your average fast bowler. Average bowlers leak energy absolutely everywhere. They jump too high, their front knee collapses when they land, which absorbs the pace instead of transferring it, and their heads bobble around, totally ruining their line of sight. Steyn's horizontal bound, his braced leg, and his rock-stable head meant zero energy leakage. Keeping his eyes completely fixed on the target guaranteed that this terrifying pace was matched with absolute pinpoint accuracy.
And the action doesn't even end at the release. His aggressive follow-through sees his chest drive hard forward, carrying him smoothly down the pitch. This athletic finish ensures all that massive momentum is completely transferred and safely dissipated. It prevents all that stress from concentrating on specific joints or body parts. So it was as safe as it was lethal. Honestly, it's a great reminder for any athlete. A proper follow-through protects your body just as much as it generates power.
All right, Section 4. The complete arsenal.
So we know exactly how he bowled so fast, but let's look at what he actually accomplished with those mechanics out there on the pitch. Dale Steyn was the complete package. His primary weapon was the late outswinger, a delivery that looked like it was crashing into the stumps before swerving away at the very last possible millisecond. But because his mechanics were so incredibly repetitive and efficient, they completely hid his intentions. Batsmen simply never knew what was coming next. He could follow up that outswinger with a searing in-swinger, a straight seam delivery, brutal bouncers, toe-crushing yorkers, and later in the innings, lethal reverse swing. The whole shebang.
Tactically, the guy was just brilliant. He rarely wasted energy bowling short for long periods. Instead, he ruthlessly targeted what we call the difficult zone, the top of off stump and the fourth stump line on a good length. This is that legendary corridor of uncertainty. By constantly hitting the specific length at 150 kilometers per hour, he forced batsmen into agonizing split-second decisions. Do I drive or do I leave? Too full, and it's an easy drive. Too short, an easy leave. Steyn just lived in that terrifying millimeter-perfect middle ground.
So the crucial point here is this. In cricket, bowlers almost always have to make a choice. You can have raw, terrifying pace and intimidation, or you can throttle back a bit and focus on ultimate control, accuracy, and swing movement. Steyn's perfect mechanics completely shattered this compromise. His action allowed him to master both, simultaneously. He didn't have to slow down to swing the ball, and he certainly didn't lose his radar when he cranked up the speed.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final section, Section 5, a legendary statistical legacy.
Because this biomechanical perfection wasn't just some theory in a lab, it translated into absolute, undeniable dominance on the world stage. The numbers across all three formats are just staggering. While he was highly effective in ODIs and T20s, his test record is really the ultimate validation of his technique. In 93 test matches, he took an astonishing 439 wickets at an average of just 22.95, with 26 five-wicket hauls. This kind of sustained excellence, over years of grueling five-day matches, proves that his kinetic chain wasn't just explosive, it was remarkably repeatable and resilient. But if there is one single metric that stands as the absolute pinnacle of his dominance, it's his test strike rate, 42.3. That means on average, it took him just over 42 deliveries, roughly 7 overs, to take a wicket in Test cricket. This highlights just how incredibly quickly and efficiently his action dismantled world-class opposition batting lineups. He wasn't just keeping runs down out there, he was a constant imminent threat.
From a 90% sprint speed run-up to a flawless horizontal bound, into a brutal car crash braced front leg and a lightning-fast arm whip, he maximized every single physical advantage he had. So it leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought. Is Dale Steyn's kinetic chain the most perfect biomechanical model in the history of fast bowling? It's really hard to argue otherwise. The next time you watch a fast bowler turn at the top of their mark and run in, look closely at their jump, their front leg, and their head position. You'll appreciate just how incredibly rare it is to put all those pieces together as perfectly as the great Dale Steyn.